Yo, I'm Nick, and I float when I'm in a pool. I physically cannot get myself to sink. I've tried blowing air out of my mouth. It doesn't work. And this is Nick's Lotus. So, this Witherbloom the Balancer guy, he's really making his rounds around the MTG community, much like a beer bong at a college party. And I totally understand. If I was able to give all of my instants and sorceries affinity for creatures, I'm sure people wouldn't care because that doesn't mean anything outside of Magic. But inside of Magic, if I was able to do that, oh my god, I'd be the talk of the town, dude. But let me tell you, this dude's surname, the Balancer, is complete BS, alright? Take it from me, a guy who runs Taval the Balance Scale. Nothing about either one of these commanders is balanced, and Wizards is lying to you, gaslighting you, tricking you. They think you're dumb. But if somehow you haven't seen this spoiled card from the new Secrets of Strixhaven set, allow me to introduce you to Witherbloom the Balancer. For 6, a black and a green, we get a 5/5 affinity for creatures, meaning it costs 1 less for each creature we control. Yes, that includes tokens. Flying, Death Touch, instants, and sorceries you cast have affinity for creatures. Oh, you caught up? Oh, good. You want to burn Wizards headquarters? Don't do that. That's ridiculous. They're a good company. But yeah, as you can tell, holy, this commander is ridiculously pushed. The fact that it itself has affinity for creatures means that this is going to be played for a single green and a single black almost every game. Not even almost every game, every game. And as everyone has said online, pair this with your Genesis Waves, pair this with your Exsanguinates, all your X-drop spells get reduced in cost, so you can go ahead and play those for $1 billion. And yeah, we're probably still going to do that. But when I looked at this commander, I thought, hey, I want to make a video talking about a couple ways I've considered building it, because I know a lot of people are going the X spells route, a couple people are going the giant spells route, and those are all fun, but I think you need more of a, an actual strategy going on. So here, I'm here to help you out. Instead of being all these guys that are like, this is really good, it interacts with this card, this is really good, it goes overpowered with this card, this is really good, here's this in a bubble example. I'm actually going to give you 2 versions of how you could build this deck to actually be a commander deck, okay? Instead of just giving you these little one-off examples of why it's overpowered, because it is overpowered. Just like a good old oil company, once you get the shell behind it, you've really hit that next level. So, like I said, I want to go over the 2 ways that I would build this deck. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the first way I would go about building this deck. And yes, you guessed it. Ow! Reanimator. That was on point, dude. I thought I was going to crash on a billion things in my room. And I'm still standing better than I ever did. I am super fat, but I just hit a wicked spin. Oh, that's all right. We can get our brand new editor to edit that out. Kangaroo, baby. He's going to be editing one of our videos every week. So give a big warm welcome to him. Kangaroo, do something funny. What a delight. You're going to fit on here perfect. But yeah, the first way I'm going to build this deck is Reanimator. I'm sorry. Making all of the really bad draft shaft reanimation spells cost 1 or 2 mana because of his affinity for creatures ability. I couldn't turn that down. So let's talk about how you'd go about building Witherbloom as a Reanimator list. Just like any good Reanimator list, you're going to need cards that fill your graveyard with good, big, beefy creatures. So we're going to run the basics. We're going to run Aftermath Analyst. We're going to run Ripples of Undeath. Those are still going to be good in a deck like this. But the affinity for creatures ability that Witherbloom offers allows us to run some extremely prolific ways to self-mill that will cost little to no mana thanks to his affinity for creatures ability. How about Breach the Multiverse, 5 and 2 black, sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. Then for each player, you get to put a creature or planeswalker card from that player's graveyard into play. Yeah, in this deck, just a 2 mana everyone mills, so a 2 mana mill 40, reanimate 4 creatures. I don't know, I think that's okay. I think that's probably fine. What about Dread Summons, X and 2 black, sorcery. Each player mills X cards. For each creature milled this way, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie. Yeah, this is gonna fire off. You may be asking, like, hey Nick, how are we firing off with all this affinity for creatures? Well, every single mana dork in this deck is a creature. And I think that's probably going to be the norm for most Witherbloom decks, because if you turn 1 a Birds of Paradise, and then you turn 2 a Sylvan Caryatid, that's 2 creatures that can produce 2 mana, and you've already got 2 mana in play. That's 6 mana towards Witherbloom on turn 2. So Witherbloom's going to be coming out turn 3 or turn 4 very easily if you just make all of your mana ramp mana dorks. There's my tip of the day. But you also have to keep in mind that any card draw like Morbid Opportunist, any ramp like Birds of Paradise, or any removal like Cankerbloom are all creatures, so they will add towards the affinity for creatures thing that Witherbloom has, as well as adding to future affinity for creatures that your instants and sorceries will have. That's the really cool part about this deck. Every version of this deck, I think, should run a ton of mana dorks, a ton of creatures that remove, and a ton of creatures that draw you cards, because that's just going to be how most decks play anyway. Doing that's just going to happen over the course of a Magic game anyway, and those being creatures are just going to inherently fuel your deck strategy. So the whole needing to run token generators or needing to run small early game creatures that do other stuff. I don't think that's necessary. I think you just run mana dorks and you just run creatures that do a deck's basic things, card draw, mana ramp removal, and you'll be fine. Anyway, back to the mill. What about Incarnation Technique? 4 and a black, demonstrate, so you can have an opponent copy it, and if you do, you get an additional copy as well. Mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, in this deck, it is a 1 mana, mill 10 cards, return 2 creatures. Wow. Even Reanimate is victim to power creep, it seems. Damn, I wouldn't have thought that. We also run our classic self-mill instants and sorceries like Drown in Filth and Grapple with the Past, which won't really get that big of a bonus from our commander at all, but still offer good self-mill. Reoccurring forms of self-mill like Grist the Hunger Tide, Old Rutstein, or Perpetual Timepiece are all going to be great for keeping our graveyards full. But one of my favorite cards in this deck is Rejoin the Fight. Being 5 and a black for a sorcery, mill 3 cards, then starting with the next opponent in turn order, each opponent chooses a creature in your graveyard that hasn't been chosen, and you get to return all the chosen creatures. So in this deck, it's a 1 black mana to do all of that. Like, do you see why this being a Reanimator deck is actually insane? Now we're gonna kind of graze over like the bomb section because you can run whatever creature bombs you want. It's a Reanimator deck. Whatever your favorite big creature bombs are, run those, reanimate those, get a little synergy between them, and you do you. All right. I'm not here to tell you what you're gonna reanimate. I'm telling you how this deck's gonna work, and then you can make it your own. So we're playing these self-mill cards. We're putting fat creatures into our graveyard. Now, what spells are we going to be playing to actually reanimate these creatures? Well, with Witherbloom's extremely overpowered ability, as we've discussed, we're going to play tons of reanimation spells that we normally wouldn't have played before because they're just not good enough. But paying those same spells for 1 or 2 mana, yeah, I think it'll slide. We got Agadeem's Awakening being X and 3 black, sorcery, return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that have different converted mana cost X or less, which in this deck with the affinity for creatures, that affects X cost spells, as you guys know. So Agadeem's Awakening is pretty much going to be like a 3 mana reanimate most of our graveyard back into play, which again, yeah, I think we'll take that. Behold the Sinister 6 being 6 and a black for a sorcery. Return up to 6 target creature cards with different names from your graveyard into play. This will be a 1 black to do that. Breach the Multiverse. We already talked about this. Everyone milling 10 and then reanimating for each player for 2 black. That seems pretty good to me. Dread Return will come out for 2 black. We talked about Incarnation Technique. Again, Draft Chaff, like Evil Reawakening, becomes incredible in this deck, being 4 and a black sorcery. Return a creature from your graveyard into play with 2 additional 1/1 counters on it. In this deck, that's 1 black to reanimate something and bring it back with 2 1/1 counters on it. Yeah, sure. Persist can come out for 1 black. Rejoin the Fight, we already talked about coming out for 1 black. Will of the Abzan could come out for 1 black in this deck, being a sorcery. Choose 1 if you control your commander. You can choose both. Any number of target opponents sack their creature with the highest power and then lose 3, or you return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, doing both of those for 1 black seems good. Something as simple as Zombify becomes a 1 black, return a creature card from your graveyard into play, and something as complex as Yawgmoth's Vile Offering becomes a 1 black sorcery that reanimates something and destroys something, which again, any of these options we will take in a heartbeat. It's actually busted. You play the Mana Dorks early, it helps you get Witherbloom out super early. Witherbloom then, with his affinity for creatures ability on your instants and sorceries, helps you cast insane self-mill and insane reanimation spells for 1 or 2 mana, sometimes 3 in the case of Agadeem's Awakening, but in that card you get to bring back your entire graveyard, so I think we're okay with paying 3 mana for that. This is an exciting one, man. Exciting commander. It's one of those ones that I think new players are going to read, and they're going to immediately run to their friend that plays Magic a lot and be like, hey, I read this. I think it does this. There's no chance that's what it does. Oh, that is what it does? I'm going to build that immediately. I think this is going to be such a fun commander for newer players. I think they're going to have an absolute blast with being able to play some power. And yeah, that is the first way I would go about building that deck. That's how I personally would build it as a Reanimator deck. But if I had to build it a second way, I gotta go tokens. You've gotta go tokens on this one, I'm sorry. So let's jump into how I would build Witherbloom the Balancer as a token deck. To start, same idea. All of your card draw, mana ramp, removal, try to make as much of it creatures as you can so we can get out Witherbloom early and we can have our deck firing off as early as possible because that's the quickest and best way we could do that. Hands down. I don't even think there's an argument there. But on top of that, on top of the mana ramp, the card draw, and the removal being creatures, we run a small package of token engines that can come out early to help keep our board full of creatures, to not only help play Witherbloom earlier, but to help play our instants and sorceries later for much cheaper. So in this version of the deck, we run stuff like Awakening Zone, giving us a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn on our upkeep, Bitterbloom Bearer and Bitter Blossom, both giving us 1/1 fairies with flying on our upkeep, From Beyond giving us a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion on our upkeep, and Lord Skitter giving us a 1/1 rat at the beginning of combat. And boy, does it become straightforward after that. We're playing the mana ramp that is creatures. Card draw, the removal that are creatures. We're playing token engines that are going to fill our board. That is plenty to get Witherbloom out early. And then after Witherbloom's out, oh my gosh, it's actually insane how many creatures are going to hit the board with this deck. So if you like a lot of tokens, this might be the build for you. You got cards like Arachnogenesis that will be able to be played for 1 green in this deck, preventing all combat damage that would be dealt to non-spiders and giving you X1/2 spiders, where X is the number of attacking creatures. One of my favorites in this list is Attempted Murder, being X and 2 black sorcery. Roll X 6-sided dice. For each even result, you put 2 neg1/neg1s on target creature, and for each odd result, you create a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow. Yeah, if we got 3 mana dorks, 3 tokens, and a Witherbloom, congratulations, your spells cost 7 less, so you can go ahead and pay 2 black to roll 7 6-sided dice and just remove any problem you have and make a ton of Stormcrows. And that is on the low end. I'm sure you'll be rolling way more than 7 dice with this thing. Because keep in mind, once you play one of these token effects, you have more creatures in play, which will then feed into the next token effect you play. So let's say you play Attempted Murder for 2 black, and you end up getting 4 Stormcrows off of it, okay? You had 7 creatures before, you just got 4 Stormcrows. Now you have 11 creatures. So when you play Awake in the Wood, you can now pay 2 green to get 11 1/1 green Forest Dryad land tokens, and then so on and so forth from there. Even basic kind of draft chaff removal like Convert to Slime becomes really good in this deck, as it's a 3 a black and a green, but in this deck will most of the time be cast for a black and a green. Destroy up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target enchantment. Then if there are 4 or more card types in your graveyard, create an XX green ooze, where X is the total mana value of all the things you destroyed. That's a big token. What about Dark Salvation? 2X and a black. Target player creates X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, then 1 target creature gets -1/-1 for each zombie. Yeah, if you have those 11 like wood forest guys you just made before, go ahead and pump them all into this guy and make 15, 20 zombies and remove the biggest problem in play that now can't deal with, yeah, exactly, your 15 to 20 zombies you just made. Dear Lord. Empty the Pits, 2X, 4 black, make a shit ton of zombies. Azuri's Predation, 5 and 3 green, make a 4/4 for each creature your opponents control and have them fight. Galadrain's Ambush is the same one as the spider one, except it prevents all combat damage, makes you a 1/1 elf for each creature attacking, and then prevents damage from non-elves. My favorite card in this list is Gelatinous Genesis, being 2X and a green for a sorcery, create XXX green ooze creature tokens. So if you've got 10 tokens out, 2 mana dorks, and then 2 other creatures, so you have 14 creatures out in a token deck, not hard to do at all. You can go ahead and pay 7 for both of those X's, so you'll pay 1 green out of your mana pool, that's it, to make 7/7/7 tokens. And then just scale it up from there, because there's probably going to be a lot more tokens than that in play. Springleaf Parade makes X1/1 Changeling. Sylvan Offering makes you a giant tree folk and a bunch of 1/1s. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that one a lot in this deck. That's busted. Their number is Legion, is X and 4 black to make X 2/2 Necrons, but you can also cast it from your graveyard, so it'll feed into itself. So if you've got access to 8 total black mana, you could theoretically pay 4 of it to just make as many Necrons as creatures you have in play because of the affinity for creatures, and then immediately pay 4 and cast it from your graveyard and do it again for like double, because now you make Necrons equal to the number of creatures you control. Do you see how this deck just doubles value whenever you play anything? It's actually disgusting. Actually busted, Commander. I thought of a couple different decks that we could do. I was like, what if we went discard? So you could make all of like the draft chaff discard cards cost like 1 or 2. That would be really good. Then I thought that would be very unfun for like a casual themed channel to be talking about. So discard was off the table. I love Reanimator, so Reanimator immediately felt like it fit this deck perfectly. As I said, there's tons of big instants and sorceries in Reanimation that you normally don't get to run because of the mana cost, but being able to reduce that mana cost, as you saw, oh my gosh. So you could either really get value off of some normally overpriced instants and sorcery reanimation cards, or you can get exponential growth with tokens, because as I said, token spells feed into bigger token spells, feed into bigger token spells, feed into bigger token spells. The best part with the token deck though is we get buff spells that come out for ridiculously cheap. So how would you like an Overwhelming Stampede for 2 green? Give all your creatures +X/+X, where X is your biggest creature and trample, for 2 green. And if that's not big enough, what about Preposterous Proportions? 5 and 2 green to give everything +10/+10 in Vigilance. In this deck, that'll be coming out for 2 green. Triumph of the Hordes, giving Trample and Infect, coming out for 2 green. Or Tristan's Command, giving us the ability to return 2 permanents from our graveyard to hand, destroy a creature or enchantment, or creatures we control get +3/+3 until end of turn, untap them. This will come out for a black and a green. Any of those. Very easy to win the game with. And once you make enough tokens, those are all going to be coming out for 1 or 2 mana. So 1 or 2 mana win cons coming out. That seems like a pretty good thing to me. So, you want to bash their face with giant creatures that you're cheating into play, or do you want to bash their face with tiny creatures that you made giant? Just take your pick. Either one of them sounds fun to me. But anyway, let me know how you would build Witherbloom, and if there's any more spoilers, let me know, because this set seems pretty disgusting so far. Huge shout out to Kangaroo for editing this video. Let him know your appreciation down below for helping us out over here on the channel. It's allowed us to have a third upload every week. So, that's all thanks to him. If you want to like, comment, and subscribe, helps us out a ton. If you want to show some additional support, you can head over to nixlotus.com, check out our Scryfall search optimization tool, check out our community submitted decks, and head over to our merch page to check out the Teneb the Harvester sweatshirt that you could buy over there. And if you want to show some extra support, you can become a Patreon or YouTube member for as low as $1 a month. You can gain access to the deck submission form where you can submit your decks for me to review on Friday night. So if any of that sounds interesting, we've got some incentives there. Huge shout out to all the names you can see on screen, and consider clicking the video you can see on screen, as YouTube thinks you might like it. Anyway, I'm out of here. Peace out, guys.